You are being lied to by a phony binary. On one hand, you have the Stoics. They tell you to endure, to accept, to retreat into the stronghold of your own mind. On the other, you have Niccolò Machiavelli. He whispers that the world is a butcher, and if you do not hold the knife, you will be the meat. Most people spend their life split between these two avatars. You attempt to be excellent and you get exploited. You attempt to be ruthless and you are tormented by remorse. You swing between the saint and the tyrant, failing at both. Here is the truth neither side admits. Stoicism without power is just detachment. It is a sedative for the conquered. But Machiavellianism without internal control is self-destruction. It is a fire that burns the arsonist. I'm trying to show you that these are not contradictory philosophies. They are two parts of a single terrible weapon utilized by the most powerful figures in history. By the end of this video, you will not choose between them. You will study the synthesis, the psychological architecture that allows you to act with the ruthlessness of a prince while sleeping with the conscience of a sage. But first, we must deconstruct the falsehoods you hold dear. Let's look at the world as it actually is, not as we wish it to be. If you enter into a boardroom, a political arena, or even a high-stakes negotiation, and you bring Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you are bringing a shield to a gunfight. There is a reason Machiavelli is loathed in public, yet studied in private. The Prince was not written for the public. It was a job application. It was a secret instruction on how to grab a state and hold it against internal and external foes. The core tenet of Machiavelli is sometimes misconstrued as the aims justify the means. That is too simplistic. The underlying lesson is that morality is a luxury of stability. When the walls are breaching, kindness is not a virtue. It is a liability. Machiavelli contends that a leader who attempts to be decent in a world of bad men will inevitably come to destruction. This is not cynicism. This is physics. Consider the story of Cesare. Machiavelli didn't only invent his theories. He observed Borgia execute them in real time. Borgia had seized the region of Romana, but it was lawless. Robbery, feuds, anarchy, the place was ungovernable. If Borgia had gone in with stoic patience, seeking to lead by noble example, he would have been scoffed at, then slain. Instead, he picked a man named Remirro di Orco, a harsh, efficient, brutal man. Borgia gave him absolute power to clean up the streets. Remirro did precisely that. He tortured, he executed, he scared the population into surrender, he established order by blood. The job was done. The region was safe. But suddenly the masses despised Remirro, and by extension they were coming to loathe Borgia. A Stoic would wonder, how do I bear this hatred? How do I remain virtuous? A Machiavellian says, how do I use this hatred? One morning, the citizens of Cesena woke up to witness a spectacle in the town center. There was Remirro di Orco, or rather two parts of him. Borgia had him chopped in two and laid on a block of wood with a bloodied knife beside him. The message was quick and surgical. Borgia took credit for the order, the safety, but he executed the savagery. Remirro, he conveyed to the people, I am not the monster. He was, and I have spared you from him. Machiavelli wrote that the masses were at once satisfied and stupefied. This is the cold reality of power. It requires a scapegoat. It requires theatrical brutality. If you are strictly a Stoic, you consider this as disgusting. You withdraw, you claim I would never. And that is why you remain an employee. That is why you are governed, not the governor. However, there is a trap here. A deadly error that the edgy online Machiavellians commit. They think being Remirro di Orco is the aim. They think brutality is strength. It is not. Remirro was a tool. He was reactive. He was emotional in his violence, and since he lacked the interior fortress, he became disposable. The true player was not the man with the knife, nor the man on the block. It was the man observing from the balcony, Borgia. But how could a human being execute a man he employed, chop him in half, and then go have breakfast? How does the mind survive its own ambition? This is where the fissures in Machiavelli occur. And this is where the gloomy imperative of Stoicism begins to creep in. Let's turn the lens. Stoicism in its present watered-down form is offered as a life hack for productivity. Cold showers and journaling, amore fati. It has been commodified into a stress ball for the working class. Accept what you cannot control. This is risky advice if you misinterpret the boundary of control. For the typical person, Stoicism is a coping mechanism for helplessness. Your employer berates you. It is what it is. The economy crashes and wipes your savings. The obstacle is the root, used this way. Stoicism is operant conditioning for surrender. It generates competent workers, not great men. But the old Stoics, they were not servile. Seneca was the instructor and advisor to Emperor Nero. He was one of the richest persons in the Roman Empire. He composed eloquent letters about the unimportance of wealth while lending money at usurious interest rates across the British provinces. Critics branded him a hypocrite. I call him a realist. Seneca realized that philosophy is the anchor that protects the ship from capsizing in a storm. But the ship still needs sails. The money, the power, the influence, those were the sails. Stoicism was just the ballast. But look at what happens when the external pressure exceeds the internal structure. Nero eventually turned on Seneca. The tyrant he helped mold became uncontrolled. When the order came for Seneca to commit suicide, he didn't run. He didn't beg. He didn't undertake a Machiavellian scheme to assassinate Nero first. He opened his veins. He expressed his final philosophical musings as the blood drained out of him. He remained calm. He died well, but he still died. And here lies the core conflict of our study. Machiavellianism concentrates solely on the outward, the outcome, the perception, the power. Stoicism concentrates solely on the internal, the reaction, the judgment, the tranquility. If you follow Machiavelli 100%, you get paranoid. You see enemies everywhere. You see every handshake as a potential dagger. The cortisol levels alone will kill you before the assassins do. You lose your soul to save your flesh. If you follow Stoicism 100%, you become inert. You accept injustice because you have convinced yourself that hurt is merely an opinion. You become a bystander in your own life, watching the planet burn as you congratulate yourself on your temperature tolerance. You save your soul, but you lose the war. The history books are packed with dead Stoics and ousted Machiavellians. But there is a third type, the outliers, the ones who saw these systems not as faiths but as software. They realized that you can run both apps simultaneously providing you know which one has admin access. Let's talk about Marcus Aurelius, the poster boy of Stoicism, the philosopher king. You read Meditations and you hear a sweet, tired man trying to be nice. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. It sounds like he's talking about annoying neighbors. He wasn't. He was talking about the Roman Senate. He was talking about Germanic warlords trying to sever the heads of his legions. He was talking about his own brother Lucius Verus, who was an alcoholic and a liability. Marcus Aurelius was the supreme monarch of the known world. He didn't sit in a garden penning poems. He spent the majority of his reign in a tent on the mud's odden boundaries of the empire, commanding the most violent military machine in history. He commanded the massacre of thousands. He repressed rebellions. He played the game of power. Here is the secret. Meditations was not a work of philosophy. It was a containment field. Marcus Aurelius was a Machiavellian operator by day and a Stoic by night. He realized a basic psychological fact. To execute the brutality required to dominate, one must possess an impenetrable inner calm. If you are emotional, you cannot be ruthless. You become cruel. There is a distinction. Cruelty is emotional. It originates from rage, insecurity, sadism. Ruthlessness is clinical. It arises from necessity, calculation, reasoning. Remirro di Orco was brutal. Cesare was ruthless. Marcus Aurelius employed Stoicism to cleanse the emotion out of his decision-making. When he had to crush an adversary, he didn't do it because he disliked them. He did it because it was the nature of the planet. He depersonalized the violence. This is the dark value of Stoicism that the modern self-help gurus won't tell you. It doesn't just help you bear suffering. It helps you inflict it without losing your sanity. It permits you to fire the incompetent employee without feeling guilt. It permits you to cut off the poisonous family member without hesitation. It helps you to ask for the greater income without feeling greedy, since you have eliminated the emotional judgment from the deed. You have accepted that this is simply how the game is played. This is the synthesis, the Stoic prince, the person who navigates the outward world with Machiavellian strategy but rules their internal world with Stoic discipline. You utilize Machiavelli to read the room, to grasp the power dynamics, to see the traps. You utilize Stoicism to keep your pulse slow when you spring the trap. Let's delve deeper into the mechanics. How do you actually apply this? We need to talk about reputation. Machiavelli famously asked, "Is it better to be loved or feared?" His responded, "It is best to be both, but if one must choose, it is safer to be feared." Why? Because love is held by a chain of obligation which men, being greedy, is destroyed any time it suited their purpose. But terror is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails. A true Stoic doesn't worry about reputation. What others think of me is none of my concern. This is disastrous advice for the real world. In a hierarchy, what people think of you is your business. It determines your access to resources, your mating opportunities, your safety. If you neglect reputation, you are invisible. But here is the nuance. If you are addicted to the validation of others, the trap of the narcissist, you are easily manipulated. Anyone who flatters you owns you. Anyone who insults you controls you. The synthesis strategy is this. You cultivate a reputation carefully, Machiavelli, but you divorce your self-worth from it, Stoicism. You curate the mask. You decide what the public sees. You convey expertise, possibly a hint of danger. You let them dread you slightly. You let people love you when it is useful. But beneath the mask stillness, you do not believe your own news release. When people cheer, you are indifferent. When people boo, you are indifferent. This makes you unshakable. Most people fail because their mask is plastered to their face. When the mask cracks, their ego shatters. The synthesis allows you to approach your public identity as an asset, like a stock portfolio or a piece of real estate. You manage it. You optimize it, but you are not it. This is how you survive the current digital panopticon. We live in an age of hyper-visibility. Everything is recorded. One mistake, one bad tweet, and the mob comes for you. The purely Machiavellian solution to this is to be a shape-shifter, continually altering your thoughts to satisfy the crowd. You become hollow. The purely Stoic way is to ignore the mob and get cancelled, dismissed, and outcast. The synthesis, you witness the mob, you comprehend its triggers, you speak its language, you weave around the pandemonium without becoming part of it. You are in the crowd, but not of it. You regard the social hierarchy as a biological system. It has rules, it has predators, it has prey. You don't get furious at the shark for being a shark, but you also don't jump in the water bleeding. Now, a warning. There is a concept in dark psychology called virtue signaling. We all know it. But let's look at the weaponized version. Virtue camouflage. Machiavelli remarked, "It is not necessary for a prince to have all the virtues, but it is very necessary to appear to have them." He mentions them. Mercy, faith, integrity, humanity, religion. He continues, "You must seem to be all these things, but you must be ready to be the opposite when the wind turns." This produces a cognitive contradiction for most people. We are raised to believe that hypocrisy is the ultimate sin. But look at the most effective leaders in your organization, in your government. They speak about community, family, transparency. But when the quarterly earnings are endangered, they execute layoffs with mathematical precision. Are they bad or are they effective? The Stoic in you wants to judge them. The Stoic in you wants to declare, "I am superior than them because I am honest." But are you, or are you just harmless? There is a remark commonly misattributed, yet the sentiment is pure black truth. I would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Stoicism is the garden. Machiavellianism is the sword. You need the garden to have a place to rest, to have something worth fighting for, to keep your humanity intact. But without the sword, the garden is only a waiting chamber for someone else's conquest. The trouble with modern pleasant guys is that they consider their lack of claws is a virtue. It isn't. It's merely an absence of claws. If you cannot inflict harm, your decision to be good is not a moral option. It's a biological default. You must be capable of the Machiavellian move. You must grasp how to manipulate, how to lie, how to crush. And then you must utilize your Stoic discipline to choose not to till it is absolutely necessary. That is the definition of dangerous. That is the definition of powerful. We have the theory. Now we develop the framework. To operate like a Stoic prince, you must internalize 3 specific laws. These are not moral commandments. They are mechanics. They are the gears that allow you to grind through resistance without wearing out your own engine. Law 1, the law of asymmetry. Machiavelli emphasizes, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you actually are. Stoicism says, retreat into your own tiny territory of stillness, combine them. In every connection there is an information economy. The individual who speaks the most pays the most. The individual who displays their emotions is bleeding currency. Most people are yearning to be understood. They over-explain. They broadcast their objectives. They get upset to indicate they are serious. They cry to signal they are hurt. They are open books in a room full of illiterates and thieves. The synthesis necessitates asymmetry. You must know everything about them. Their insecurities, their desires, their worries. They must know nothing about you except what you carefully pick for them to see. When you are upset, your face should be blank. When you are excited, your voice should be steady. When you are afraid, your posture should be relaxed. This is not repression. Repression is hiding it from yourself. This is containment. You feel the feeling Stoic, but you deny the world the gratification of witnessing it. Machiavelli. When your opponent cannot read you, they transfer their own worries onto you. You become a mirror and people are scared of mirrors. Law 2, the premeditation of treachery. The Stoics have a technique called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of ills. You picture everything going wrong so that when it happens, you are not astonished. Machiavelli would take this a step farther. Do not merely visualize ill luck, visualize betrayal. Assume your business partner will steal from you. Assume your dearest friend will envy your success. Assume the partnership will break. This sounds paranoid. It isn't. It is the only way to love others safely. If you assume loyalty as a default, you will be destroyed when it is lacking. You will get bitter, you will despise humanity, but if you assume self-interest, you are never disappointed. You are only prepared. When the betrayal occurs, you don't gasp. You don't shout, how could you? You nod, you remark, I saw this coming at mile marker 6. And since you saw it coming, you have already created the contingency. You have the leverage ready, you have the exit strategy. You manage the betrayal with the clinical detachment of a surgeon removing a malignancy. No drama, just incision. Law 3. Aggressive amore fati. NZE, a student of both schools, invented amore fati, love of fate. The Stoic accepts the flames. The Machiavellian uses the fire. When calamity strikes, you lose the job. The romance ends. The market crashes. The synthesis does not just declare, I accept this. It says, I can use this. This is the ultimate alchemy. Your reputation is damaged. Good. Now you are free from the demands of others. You can operate in the shadows. You are fired. Good. You are stagnating anyway. Now you have the desperation required to develop the empire. You do not merely withstand the pandemonium. You metabolize it. You transfer the energy of the strike into the fuel for your counterattack. Let's shift from the abstract to the concrete. The boardroom, the social circle, the romance. The modern world is soft, but the fundamental dynamics are still primitive. We basically swapped swords for lawsuits and poison for HR complaints. Scenario A, the corporate sabotage. You are in a high-performance environment. You have a colleague, let's name him Elias. Elias grins at you. He goes to lunch with you. But in meetings, he quietly undermines your views. He accidentally leaves you off email chains. He frames your ideas as his own. The ordinary person becomes emotional. They confront Elias. Why are you doing this? Elias denies it. He gaslights. You're imagining things, friend. Now you look nuts, you appear emotional, you lose status. The Stoic ignores Elias, he acts according to his nature. I will just do my work well. Result, Elias continues to grab credit. You do the work, he gets the promotion. You preserve your virtue, but you lose your livelihood. The Machiavellian spreads rumors about Elias. He hacks his computer, he plays dirty. Result, maybe you win, maybe you get caught and fired. It's high danger. The synthesis, the outlier plays it differently. Stoic period. You feel the wrath mounting. You acknowledge it, you dismantle it. You know Elias is not a villain. He is a competitor. It is not personal. It is basically resource acquisition. You remove your ego from the equation. Machiavellian period. You engage the law of asymmetry. You become friendlier to Elias. You lure him closer. You laud him in public. Why? Because when you praise someone, you lower their guard. You make them think they have fooled you. The trap, you wait, you document, you let him steal a trap idea, an idea you know will fail. Alternatively, you wait for him to overextend the strike. When he makes his move, you do not assault him. You simply move aside and let the weight of his own incompetence crush him. And because you praised him, no one suspects you. You killed him with kindness. You remain the nice man in the eyes of the tribe. Social proof. While brutally eradicating the threat, power scenario B, the power dynamic in partnerships. This is uncomfortable, yet we must go there. In any relationship, there is a balance of power. The person who needs the other least retains the power. The exclusively Machiavellian approach is harmful. It incorporates dread game, manipulation, intentional envy. It kills trust. The merely Stoic attitude is often too remote. It can feel frigid, unloving, indifferent. The synthesis is sovereignty. You love fully, you give, you are present, but you maintain a fortress of the ego that no one can enter. You do not make the other person your deity. You do not make them the source of your happiness. You use the Stoic idea of autarkia, self-sufficiency. This makes you really beautiful. Neediness is unattractive. Sovereignty is magnetic. By not trying to dominate others, Stoic, but having perfect control over yourself. Machiavelli, you unwittingly acquire the upper hand. They chase you because you are the mountain, unyielding, solid, grounded. You are not playing games. You are simply not dependent. That is the most dangerous sort of power. The power of not needing anything. Now we approach the tricky part, the part most channels skip. If you take this road, if you marry the fox and the lion to the sage, you will transform. You will lose the ability to relate to the masses. You will enter into a room and you will not notice people having a party. You will see hierarchies. You will witness insecurity disguising as confidence. You will see the puppet strings. It can be incredibly lonely. It is the loneliness of the adult at the children's table. You will observe your buddies moaning about difficulties they made, and you will know just how to fix them, but you will also know they don't want solutions. They demand pity. You will witness politicians and know the script they are reading from the prince. Chapter 18. The danger here is nihilism. When you see the equipment behind the curtain, the magic act loses its wonder. You might question, why bother? If it's all simply power games and biological imperatives, what is the point? This is where the Stoicism must defend you from the Machiavellianism. Machiavelli tells you how to play the game. Stoicism tells you why to play. You play not merely to win. Winning is temporary. The empire will fall. The money will decay. The reputation will vanish. You play because participation is the tribute we pay to existence. Marcus Aurelius didn't desire to be emperor. He wanted to be a philosopher. But fate put him on the throne. He could have ran. He may have been a tyrant. Instead, he played the hand. He was dealt with utter excellence. He accepted the burden, Stoic, and did the duty. Machiavellian, you take this path not to become a monster, but to become a guardian. Because the world is full with monsters, real ones, people who use these evil techniques with zero conscience, people who will hurt the innocent, the weak, and the naive. If decent men are too weak to hold the sword, the evil will reign by default. This is the final justification for the synthesis. You learn the dark arts not to practice evil, but to recognize it, to intercept it, and to destroy it. You become the monster so that you can slay the creatures. So which one should you follow? The question is flawed. It assumes you are one thing. You are not a noun. You are a verb. You are a process. You are a fluid capacity for violence and a hard ability for peace. If you leave this video and chose just Stoicism, you will be a saint in a cell. If you pick solely Machiavelli, you will be a monarch in a cage of your own paranoia. The outlier selects neither and both. The outlier creates the internal castle, impregnable, calm, reasonable, and from the gates of that citadel, he sends out the troops of strategy, deception, and force to transform the world. You must be chilly enough to see the reality. You must be hard enough to take the blow, and you must be smart enough to strike back. This is not a route for the indolent. It takes constant care. It demands you to observe your own mind as intently as you watch your foes. But the reward is actual agency. For the first time in your life, you are not reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. But there is a final hazard, one I have not discussed before. If you acquire this level of control, if you can manipulate outcomes and regulate your own emotions, you will face a temptation that has ruined bigger men than you. It is not failure. It is hubris. When you start to believe you are the god you are emulating. How can you prevent the power from corrupting the vessel? How can you maintain the warrior in the garden without burning down the garden? There is a final secret approach, the shadow integration. But that is a conversation for the initiates. If this opened your eyes, recognize this is only what I can reveal publicly. There are videos I cannot upload for everyone. There are areas of dark psychology that I just cannot express openly on YouTube without being blocked or demonetized. The algorithm suppresses the most strong information. Those exist behind the join button. If you're still here, you're not like the rest. Subscribe if you haven't. But if you desire what's hidden, click the join button and go into the architect level. You will unlock rare, uncensored videos that go into the deepest corners of the human soul. Most won't. That's the point.